Hello, Tosin. But you pay, and when you pay, I'm not using them. Yesterday was 19. Yesterday was 19. Yeah, the doctor is from you now. Your purchase will not expires. It will expire next month. 19. That will make them, yes, successful. Not the withdrawal, the social fund that they deducted. And that they are giving him a badge already. There's already a badge. ID, that he has paid. For ID, what about ID? For the ID now, they are not showing any verification for anything. Hold on. Now, what are
Why would this man join as an attendee? He you are trying to use your good morning, Mr. Benson.
Good morning, sir.
Uh okay, all right.
How are you, sir?
I'm good, sir. Thank you very much, sir. So the thing is, the people you share your link with actually join as a panelist. So I'm going to send it back as just as an attendee. Is that okay?
That's very fine, sir.
All right, thanks, sir. Oh, Morrison, are you part of the panel? No. Okay. Yes, attend. Okay. Send this one. So are you part of the panelists?
Yeah, we are the organizer.
Okay, Mr. Simon, right?
No. Organizer, yeah. Which one are you?
Okay. All right. This is the chair, sir. The chair is majorly for the panelists.
Okay. Well, we are the organizers.
Oh, you know. The organizer will sit while the panelists sit there.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. I'm not the organizer.
No, you can sit here. This is majorly for the audience and the organizer and everything. Unless you are part of the family and you're not part, I can see that you're just the organizer. All right. Good morning, Mr. Benson. Good morning, Mrs. Adesoji Adebimpe. Can you hear me, sir? Good,
It's
Mr.
Adesoji Adedipe and it's a he.
Oh, sorry about that, sir. Good morning, sir. Sorry about that, sir. Good morning, sir.
Good morning.
So this is 9:16 and we need to start the session. However, the chair is not around, Mr. Simon Lesomi from Wake Forest University. So should we wait for about 2 or 3 minutes to start, or we should just dive directly to the discussion?
I think this is our panel. This is our own panel. We organize it. Book Prof can join us soon. I don't think we need to waste
Time
we
with.
have at this time. If they are right there, we'll take their presentations.
All right.
When the Prof comes to
All right.
our meeting.
All right. So thank you. So because of that, Mr. Adesoji Adedipe, can you start your Adedipe? Can you start your presentation, sir? Thank you, sir.
All right. It's Adesoji Adedipe and Emmanuel Etuede that are presenting right now. And I'll try to share my slides. Hopefully it works. I've sent a request to you, please.
Done.
Okay. There we go. Okay. I don't know if you can see my slides now.
Yes, you can see your slide, sir.
All right. Thank you very much. So I'll just give me a second. Where am I? Okay. All right. Good morning, everyone. The title of the presentation that we have this morning is Apostasy Among Young Christian Adherents in Nigeria. Looking at Obiaruku in Delta State, Nigeria as our case study. The title of the presentation, we have an introduction, we have a statement of problem, we have research questions, aims and objectives, we have the methodology, we have some explanations to make about the research area, delve into a little bit of the findings we have so far, the implications of this on the community and on the Nigerian society at large, and then we have some concluding thoughts and recommendations. As a form of introduction, we have like 3 definitions from varying perspectives of what apostasy means. Patrick, 2009, believes that apostasy is the renunciation, disaffiliation, abandonment, and defection from a former religion encompassing the acceptance of a contrary opinion to what one had held previously at the individual level. There's a complete of biblical, theological, and ecclesiastical literature sees it as forsaking or renouncing a religion or a deliberate abandonment of one religion for the other. Thomas Aquinas feels he's falling away from God, which could take various forms and shapes corresponding to the various ways in which man is united to God, either by faith, by duly submitting to the readiness of the will to obey his commandments, and by the works of supererogation, such as religious life, the clerical state, or the holy orders. We, myself and Emmanuel, believe that apostasy, the way we understand and conceive it, is the questioning and rejection of man's relationship with God. So by way of introduction, still, we look at Nigerian Christian demography. Nigeria is a highly religious country. Everybody has pretty much an understanding and a consciousness of a belief in a religious system, and we hold and invest a lot in moral values. Nigeria is the largest Christian population in Africa with 45.5%, 54% Christian demography, 80 to 100 million Christians in the midst of an estimated 230 to 237 million population. These are estimates because we've not had a census in a while. Christianity is predominant in the southern part of the country and the north central. The Christian population comprises of people professing with regular church attendance and ardent believers who are active and conscious participants and attendees of church. On the right side of the slide, we have a list of the most prayerful nations on earth. Afghanistan is the only country ahead of Nigeria, with 96%. Nigeria is 95%. There's Algeria, Senegal, Djibouti, Iran. I don't want to run through all of this list. But meanwhile, the likes of China with 1%, UK with 6%, Denmark with 10% are the least prayerful countries in the world. So Nigeria's largest religion by province, Nigeria's social fabric is highly grounded and founded on religion. Christianity, like I talked about, is pretty much predominant in the South. And Christian communities are established on social media, majorly from the southern region. There is a lot of presence of Nigerian Christians on the social media, and mostly in the southern part of the country. That's where you find it the most. Still on introduction, I'm looking at the youth, because the youths are the future of any state, any community, or any society. In contemporary society, Christian norms and values have declined in Nigeria, with moral relativity and extreme flexibility paving the way for the sweeping influence of social media value systems on the youths. This is according to Ononogbu and Chiroma, 2018. I just have a brief comment there by Dr. Stan, whom I believe is a Nigerian American, on his ex-handle, who talked about the fact that himself and his wife stopped attending church a year ago because they feel it was wrong for the pastor and the music director of the small church like they had to be making $80,000 and $70,000. He says these guys get their food, utilities, and house paid for by the church. This means that they're amongst the top earners in America, and this, they believe, is not designed by Jesus Christ. And they even feel that because they don't even have data and they can't probe deep, they know. He has said in this particular post on X that he's sure that Nigeria is way worse than what he's talking about over here. We also have comments made by Nigerian award-winning literature writer Chimamanda Adichie, who has given her reservations about Nigerian churches. The other time, she was talking about the fact that she stopped going to church in Nigeria because of their constant demands for money and perceived hypocrisy. She says they request too much money and focus less on the faith. She said Catholicism in Nigeria is way too much about money these days, fundraising or the other, Thanksgiving, and these are the reasons why she stopped attending Catholic churches in Nigeria, because she used to be she was brought up as a Catholic adherent and she loved the Nigerian church a lot. The Jardine Juice post is also here too, where it talks about the fact that he's disappointed that Papa David Obi is warning Nigerians and threatening them not to talk or criticizing him, or else he will lock them up. And then he's saying that if a religious leader is sounding like that, what do you expect from the politicians in this country? He talks also about Nigerian pastors who make citizens stop going to church like they do in other parts of the world. He cites the UK, the US, and the EU as examples. There's also, so for us on the statement of the problem, we figured out, or we observed and affirmed, that there's a gradual disinterest of young persons in Christianity in Nigeria. There's a possibility of arrest restive, disrespectful, and delinquent youth demography with no moral compass as a result of apostasy, and that they need to address this growing disinterest and suspicion in Christianity and Christian values in Nigeria. People are
There, Mr. Alice, yes, you find where the truth is.
and then there's a comment here by Pastor Chidi who talked about 70.
No. This is just a speaker. It's just a speaker. So
Not by might. And then we did in-depth interviews with 3 former youth leaders and a pastor. Emmanuel will continue from here, from slide 11.
Good morning, all. I hope you can hear me.
Yes, we can. Let's go on.
Okay. So I'll continue from the research area. Why Obiareku is actually of interest is because in this region, Obiareku happens to be the historically the first place where Christian data is like the Isoko region and parts of the Urhobo region. So it's like more like the foundation of Christianity in this area. We have here that the first Christian encounter was in 1841, and the first church was founded here in 1910. Then also, currently the town hosts over 100 churches. Not much of a big town, but it has over 100 churches. And we have just 2 mosques here for Muslim corpers and a few Muslim traders that are resident in the town. So then on the other hand, we have things that don't identify with the traditional religious religion here. They also participate in their festivals and their activities, but they are not professing traditional religious. Yes. So our findings, next slide.
Yes,
please.
it's on.
Okay. So from our findings, we discovered that majority of youth in the town are uncomfortable with pastors. According to our findings, they said after politicians, pastors are the next big problems in this vicinity now, and it's also representative of the larger Nigeria. They are the next big problems because of corruption allegations, because of money consciousness, because of establishment of churches for business purposes and extravagant lifestyles of pastors. They just went on and on. Then also we discovered that some persons identified boring services and programs of churches that, okay, what goes on in church does not really resonate with them as young persons, does not really identify with them as young persons. We also see that some persons have reservations that Christianity is actually a fallen religion, it's not really primary to them. So they tend to identify more with their traditional religion. And then we also saw from our findings that people are becoming in this region because they say there is less emphasis on Christian values and teachings and more emphasis on money and some other things. So all of these factors, they work together to make youth disinterested in Christianity. Then lastly on this part, we saw that for youths that are even going to church, we see that they are more interested in churches that have special prayers and sacrifices to enhance prosperity and get like this Yahoo internet fraud syndrome. Churches that can enhance those things. That's where you find youth more now than churches that emphasize anything about Christian teachings, because for them, they believe church is no longer about values or morality, it's about money. So these are some of the things that make youth grow towards apostasy in Christianity in this region. Next slide, please. Next slide.
Okay.
Yeah.
Seems to, okay. Yeah. It's on now.
Okay. Okay. No, go back a bit. It should be this implication.
Okay, sorry. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so the implications, as our second research question said, the implication of this apostasy is that there is reduced and church attendance among the youth. Majority of youths that were born and bred in church from young, getting to a certain age, they stop going to church and get disinterested. Then they also see church as a social gathering now, not more of a spiritual, more moral gathering, but more of a social event that they attend maybe once in a while when there's a special thing, a special gathering, a celebration there. That's when you see them. Then also among youth in town, you see that because of less interest in Christianity, which is like the major center of value inculcation in this land, there are no more moral boundaries are allowed, and they see themselves as allowed to do whatever they want to do. They can explore society the way they want. There are no moral boundaries. Then there's also growing disregard and disinterest for Christian leaders and leadership generally. And so if you identify, if you are a Christian or you identify as a Christian and as a Christian leader especially, you almost have no regard among the youth in this. Have no interest. They don't give you that honor as a religious person, so to speak. Then also we see that there is even growing antagonism against Christians. We see when young persons go out for evangelism, you will see comments thrown at them as practical example, like what is stated here. You see, find boys like when they do evangelism instead of Yahoo. Like they don't expect you as a young person to do anything Christianity because for them Christianity is not really what it is or what it portends to. It's a scam. So young persons should be serious about making money rather than whiling away time in whatever church or Christian activity you think you are doing. Then also we see that there is an unrestricted urge to explore society, like we've mentioned before. There is an unrestricted urge without boundaries. They believe they can make anything, they can engage in anything at all to just make ends meet in society, because for them there are no moral boundaries, there are no moral compass. Whatever they thought they knew before was a lie. Now, also we now see more youth and engaging in social vices as cultism, internet fraud, money rituals, and they are not doing it like it's no longer a secret, it's no longer something to protect, it's no longer a vice, so to speak, to shy away from. It's now embraced like a lifestyle. It's seen as a legal thing to do. It's not a vice, it's like more of a value. So you're either a cultist or you're a fraudster, or you can be bold about it. You are not even hidden. People identify openly that this is who I am because they don't see anything to conceal about it. Then we also see among young persons in this land that there is increased participation in traditional festivals and beliefs, even without professing to traditional religious adherence. Now, this is a problem not really because they are identifying with traditional festivals, but it's a problem because if you go to the last point on this slide, you'll see that there is the tendency towards violence in this traditional festival. There's an example of the Ikinge festival there, like we stated here. The Ikinge festival is an annual festival in this part where young persons are not really young persons alone. Participants in the festivals are allowed to be violent in a particular day. They will take their machetes and their cutlass and their daggers and whatever and test it on themselves with the belief that they've been fortified against armed, they've been fortified against weapons, so they can test on themselves. So with this kind of festival on an annual basis, what happens currently is that the cultists in the town are now able to target the arrivals during this time of the festival and cause harm. For the past 3-4 years, there have been cases where there have been casualties where the charms that they believe they did not work on the persons that were done, and you have casualties. Some of them have died, some of them have been hospitalized, some of them have lost part of their body and inflicted deep injuries because of this culture of of violence that they are now embracing. So you have more youth, and the problem is when the festival takes place, after the festival, the end of the harm and the hurt, there are reprisals by court groups at the end of the first festival. Why? Because more youth are now embracing this culture of violence. They are neglecting the Christian. When they were doing this Christian thing, when they were more of church persons, there was these tendencies were reduced. But now that more youth are deserting Christianity and churches and embracing festivals, we see more of this cultural violence going on. So we also see that there are another implication of this is there is a possible extinction of Christian heritage and influence in the society. So conclusion, by way of conclusion, from our findings, we are led to ask, because we discovered that what is really obtainable here is not apostasy in the true sense of the word, like the questioning of Christian doctrine or religious doctrine and the rejection of it. But we actually see that what is obtainable here is a search for pure Christian religion. The youth are actually saying the practice of religion of Christianity by the pastors and by the churches is really not what it is. So they are not really rejecting Christianity. They are rejecting the practice of Christianity in the land, and they are seeking for a pure Christian practice. So we conclude that Christian values are still a source of major social peace in Nigeria security. Christian values in itself are still a source of social peace, but what is happening is that these values are not emphasized in churches anymore in this area, and that is why people are rejecting, young persons are rejecting them. We also see that if these festivals are not curbed, they are avenues for breeding violence. They are avenues for breeding violence and a haven for court groups. So we recommend that there should be re-emphasis on Christian values and reduction in exorbitant lifestyles of church leaders and pastors. This may really help to impact youth positively. Like,
all right, thank you so much, Adesoji and Emmanuel.
Days ago, the recent rejection. Okay.
Thank you so much. I hope you can hear us from here.
Yeah, I can hear you.
I can hear you.
Welcome to this panel. My name is Peter Oderity, and this is so. Right, so we are the organizers of the panel. Unfortunately, our chair is not here, so we have to take up a Q&A session. But I would just like to add some conversation to it, spice into the panel, and I believe I and Oluwaseun have a different opinion on apostasy. I think one thing that I want to foreground is that when it comes to apostasy, it's not only limited to Christian community alone, but the Christian tradition. It encompasses all religious traditions. And as well, there are in cultures and out cultures. That is, those people, we talked about renunciation, that's those who have renounced being religious, they are not religious anymore, they are the out culture. The in culture are the ones that are still practicing religion, you're just switching from one religion to other. So we need to find a way of conceptualizing what apostasy really means. So I think if you actually want to say one or two things before. Okay. Does anybody have questions to the center?
I have questions. I want to ask, what do you mean by pure Christian religion? And pure because that's pure. How must be pure? Then another ask here is that, don't you think that the youths that are living Christianity, they lack the knowledge of Christianity, what Christianity really means? So the church meant to engage society or meant to engage with it, especially in politics. But the church is engaged for politics. Thank you.
Okay, so if you want to respond to the questions.
Emmanuel, do you want to respond to that? Yeah.
Okay, let me respond to that. So what we mean by pure Christian religion first Pure Christian religion is actually, we mean that the emphasis on Christian values and principles, the practice and the emphasis of it, not just saying it, but the life of, like, if you go back to one of our slides, like one of the youth said there, emphasis on Jesus Christ's teachings and his lifestyle. That's what we mean. There's what we have currently is an adulterated Christian religion where the emphasis on values are reduced and the emphasis on money and exorbitant lifestyle is emphasized. I don't know if you get. So that's what we mean by pure Christian religion emphasis. Then secondly, whether or not it's youth lack the knowledge of Christianity, that's why they're engaging in this, and should the church be separate from politics? We're in the age of knowledge. Social media is also itself is a means of education to many youths. So it's not really because youth lack the knowledge of Christianity. Many of the youth are living Christianity and Christian practice because what they read from the Bible is not what they see in preachers, it's not what they see practiced in churches, it's not what they see in society. So it's not really that they are not knowledgeable, it's that people they look up to teach them, people they look up to learn their lifestyles are not leading the life that they read from the scriptures. So it's not really a problem of knowledge, it's actually a problem of practice.
But Emmanuel, you didn't say so. You didn't say so during your presentation. In fact, one of the implications you mentioned is that you said money consciousness.
Yeah.
I mean, you mentioned foreign services, but and you said big churches mostly identify with their own goals. I don't think you explained it this way when you were making your presentation, and I guess that was why the question came up.
Okay.
People that are living life and connected from the core teacher of Christianity, which is influence. No materialism, but I want to say that materialism is secularism. It's also part of what
Exactly. Exactly. Please, does anybody also have comments? No, okay, well, I think I have. If you look at your implications, the first one we talked about reduced or cessation of church attendance. I think you should problematize that. I think that's where the statement of the problem should come from. While you were making your presentation, we really didn't catch the statement of the problem. Perhaps it was because of the network that I was fluctuating over here. But I think part of the main problem is that there's a reduced attendance in church goers. And one of the reasons because of the internet, like we talked about, you've mentioned secularization here, and other factors. Actually, do you want to say one of those?
Well, I don't want to talk now, really, but my own view about apostasy is quite totally different. Because I'm seeing apostasy as a religion on its own now.
Oh, no.
A kind of the youth abandoning the organized religion to form their own kind of religion that they believe in. Because my own solution is religion is your communication with whatever that you believe that is higher than you. But what is higher than you might not be what is higher than you. Your own God might not be my own God. My own God might be my mind. The one my mind said I should do this is what I do. So it means that I do that. My mind is my God. Your own God might be something else. So in fact, nowadays when you go to church, you find that what they are doing is like an old way of practicing religion. I rather, well, I want to do my own religion on my own with what I believe, based on the trending nowadays. So I believe that those that are being tagged apostates can actually start their own kind of religion.
It's not just quite easy as such, because some people will say, I'm no longer associating with any religion, and then some people will say, I want to switch from one religion to the other. So it's quite complicated. You can't lump them in the same
box.
You know they are talking about it's switching religion. Now you are in the Christianity. Now you are switch of Christianity, either another one or you don't want to do that. You want to go at all.
No, you can create your own religion.
Yeah, what can create is only big but they are not talking about creating now.
But they are not switching and just living.
Okay, I have a question.
I wanted to take question. Apostasy the same. Okay, is apostasy the same as being an atheist?
That's what I was saying.
Because my own view of apostasy was rejecting your beliefs to acquire opposing beliefs.
Exactly.
And I even had to check the dictionary to be sure. Is embracing opposing beliefs. But an atheist, I think that would fall into the category of what you're describing, not wanting to fit into a religious setting. Believing that my mind can be
It is people rejecting God. It is God does not exist.
okay, so I think that in apostasy, we have the position of hope.
Can we respond to this question?
If the basis is pulling out for the particular religion, then is an apostate before
So, if we might come in and chip in one or two things at this point, Dr. Derry, Dr. Falabi. So atheism, in response to the lady in the room, thank you for your contribution. So atheism is a belief system on its own. It's not the same thing as apostasy, the way we understand it. Apostasy talks about renunciation. Dr. Falabi talks about the fact that he feels these people are trying to create their own religion. They're still affiliated, like we mentioned in our slides. In the case of Obiaruku, for example, these people still call themselves Christians, but they follow the traditional religion around the society. They participate very actively and engage very consciously with cultural activities that are not in tandem with Christian values. That are actually
maybe these people are not Christians in the first place. Maybe they are not even Christians. Maybe they are pretenders. Maybe they are just pretending to be Christians.
No, so what I'm saying is, so they believe that this is their culture, so they participate actively in it. Does that mean that they don't believe, they've not renounced, so to speak, what we found was that they feel that the Christianity that is out there is not what Christianity should entail, is why they are renouncing or stepping back from it. I don't know if Emmanuel wants to say something too. Yeah.
Sorry, how do you place this? Like, who that's I just what your last explanation now. Since
Can I say something?
Identify with the religion, but don't practice it. Are they practicing as well?
They don't practice, but
They don't practice it. When perhaps they were born to Christian or Muslim.
They are paying for you. Why? But
They don't. No, they don't. They don't. When you do yes. When they want to be reformed, when the so is that apostasy as well?
Yeah, because it's a very complex phenomenon.
Yes.
Because
What do you call a Christian? What do you call a Muslim? It's not practicing.
All right, I would like to respond now, and then we go to the second presenter.
Okay, Emmanuel, can you just say something briefly? Thank you. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you very much for your feedback.
We have to move on.
Okay. So on the distinction between atheism and apostasy, apostasy is not atheism. What we discover, atheism is a question of God's existence in total. But what we discovered is they are not questioning God's existence here. They are only questioning the beliefs and the doctrines of Christianity in relation to God, not really God's existence. So they are professing Christians, and they decide to abandon what they believe is not Christianity, Christian practices.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Adesoji and Emmanuel, for your lovely presentation.
Yeah, okay.
Thank you for putting this together. Yeah.
Thank you. So we'll move on to the next presenter, who is Vincent Abimbola. Are you there? Vincent Abimbola Fadiru?
Yes, I'm here.
All right. Vincent
Abimbola Fadero is presenting on religion and new media, the interplay between religious expression, heresy, and apostasy among Nigerian Christian youths. You have 15 minutes. Go ahead, sir.
Okay, good morning, everybody.
Good morning. Please, can you speak louder?
Okay, so I'll be presenting a paper on religion and new media, exploring the interplay between religious expression, heresy, and apostasy among Nigerian Christian youth. Abstract. This study explores the interplay between religious expression, heresy, and apostasy among Nigerian Christian youths, focusing on the impact of new media. Apostasy is presented as the culmination of a gradual process, often influenced by heretical teachings propagated through social media platforms. The research critically reviews the content shared by prominent online religious influencers, and it evaluates the limitation of current approaches, such as the Gamaliel approach, seen in Acts chapter 5, verse 33 to 39, in addressing heresy. Findings emphasize the necessity of sound theological training for individuals seeking to influence religious discourse online. The paper highlights the dual role of new media as both a platform for spiritual growth and a potential pathway to heresy, offering insight into its implication for the future of Christianity in Nigeria. Introduction. The importance of the new media in the propagation and the spreading of gospel in Nigeria and by extension, Africa, cannot be overemphasized. The Nigerian Christian youths have religious freedom as a result of the fundamental human right which enables them to share their opinions like an authority on religious, sacred, and theological issues. The new media has become a platform or a fountain that brings forth spiritual growth and doctrinal inaccuracies. It has become a fountain for spiritual growth and doctrinal inaccuracies, blessing and curses, virtues and vices, Akonore 2025, sound doctrinal and theological diet, and the poison of heretical teachings. The Nigerian Christian youth have been empowered through the means of religious expression to make comment on religious and doctrinal issues on which they have little or no knowledge about. It is pertinent to know that the aforementioned religious expression is displayed in full-fledged by Nigerian Christian youth on different social media platforms, such as Facebook, WhatsApp, Instagram, X, formerly Twitter, and TikTok. Without any iota of doubt, many Nigerian youths are either deceiving people or being deceived on this social media platform. In other words, these Christian youths are either deceiving people through the sharing of heretical content, or they are negatively influenced by online religious influencers or celebrities. Having said this, let us look at the two most important words in this paper, heresy and apostasy. The word apostasy emanates from the Greek word parapipto, which is derived from two Greek words, para, which means from, by, besides, or near, and pipto, or pe, which means to descend from a higher place to a lower place, to fall from or upon. Metaphorically, it means to fall under judgment and to come into condemnation. It would also mean to fall from a state of uprightness, to fall out or fall from. These two Greek words make the word parapipto, which when translated into English would mean to fall or slip aside and fall away, that is, to deviate from the right path, turn aside and wander into error, or from the true faith. From the Greek etymology of the word apostasy, it is obvious that it means a deviation from the path of righteousness into unrighteousness, the path of godliness into lasciviousness, and to fall away from the glowing light of light into the obscurity of darkness. In other words, apostasy is the process of denying the truth and its person in order to fully embrace falsehood, and it is a falling away from the Christian faith into the error of the wicked. It could also mean a denial or a renunciation of one's religion or faith. Apostasy could also be defined as a complete denial, disaffiliation, and renunciation of the Christian faith. In like manner, the word heresy emanates from the Greek word airesis, which simply means dissension arising from diversities of opinions and aims. It could mean a choice, a party, disunion, or a sect. From the etymological meaning of the word heresy, it could be used that heresy refers to having diverse subjective opinions or exegesis of the truth. In other words, it is the process of holding contrary and opposing opinion against the truth of God's words. This paper critically examined the online religious content of three Nigerian pastors, that the Frees, Pastor Abel Damina, representing the Christocentrics, and Pastor David Ibiyume, and their impact in the spreading of subtle, erroneous doctrines. And now this teaching have brought many Nigerian youths into the dungeon of apostasy. Review of related literature. OG 2025 opines that social media as well as internet technology is a wonderful breakthrough in the present era of the world of communication, which advances the actualization of divine injunction to man to conquer and subdue the earth. Social media is impacted greatly on life in the world. In like manner, Adeboye 2015, page 11, asserts that the first form of apostasy is generally a willful defection or revolt, a formal disaffiliation from or abandonment or renunciation of a religion by a person or a group of persons. While the second form of apostasy is intended not to include an entire denial of the faith of Christianity, but a falling away from some key and true doctrines of the Bible accepted by many churches. Now, Adeboye creates a diversity or creates a diversity between the two forms of apostasy. The first one is a willful defection or a formal disaffiliation or renunciation of one's religion. But there is the other form, which is not just a falling away from a religion. It is a falling away from the key and true doctrines of the church. And I humbly submit to you that the second, there cannot be the first without the second. There can be the first without the second. The two works together, they work hand in hand. There must first be a falling away from some key doctrines and teachings of the Bible, which will now lead to a falling away or a renunciation of one's faith or one's religion. Stephanos 2023 proceed that apostasy is seen as Stephanos commenting on apostasy in Islam. Just like the other speaker said, apostasy is not just limited to the Christian faith. We also have apostasy in other religions of the world. In Islam, apostasy is seen as leaving Islam, rejecting the way of Allah, and abandoning Islamic religion after believing it for a long or short period. Therefore, apostasy in Islam is grouped with other acts of treason that demand corporal punishment, such as rebellion, adultery, highway robbery, drinking wine, and theft. Now, apostasy in Islam is seen as an act of treason, but the same can be said of Christianity. And that is why I deliberately quoted Sleek 2028, who opines that if someone apostates from Christianity, measures are taken to restore him or her by constant visitation or follow-up, counseling, and evangelism. This teaching of Christ restrains both the clergy and the laity, the family and the community from persecuting, punishing, or causing someone to suffer pain for abandoning Christianity. Leave the apostate to God, he shall deal with him. Hence, there is no punishment for apostasy in Christianity. Discussion. I group my discussion into 3 sessions. Pastor Ifedayo Olarinde, that the Frees polemics against monogamous marriage. In the 2020, in the 2020 podcast, Pastor Ifedayo Olarinde, that the Frees raised a polemic while discussing about polygamous marriage and monogamous marriage. He said, and I quote, monogamous marriage is a social construct. It is not a scriptural or biblical injunction. And he further affirmed in that podcast, that all men are designed biologically to cheat on their partner. This kind of submission from someone who is highly referred as a pastor, who also doubled as an online religious content creator, has actually misled many youths, many Nigerian Christian youths, who now believe that marriage should not be polygamous or should not be monogamous, or a monogamous marriage is actually a social construct or a Western ideology. Many Nigerian Christian youths now believe that they can have a wife and still have other ladies outside, or they can have more than one wife, like other religions are allowed to practice. In like manner, I look at Abel Damina doctrinal gibberish. I look at Pastor Abel Damina doctrinal gibberish.
Continue.
That Abel Damina, in a 2020 post, affirmed publicly online that committing murder does not take anyone to hell. 419 does not take anyone to hell. That is internet fraud. This again coming from a highly refined pastor or highly refined online religious content creator has led many youths to apostasy, because it is addition out of heretical content to the youth. Even though what he intended to say, he wanted to prove doctrinally that it is only faith in Christ that will determine whether a man will go to hellfire or a man will go to heaven. But then, by bringing in that comment that someone who has committed murder can actually go to heaven, and someone who is into internet fraud.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, sir. The time is up. Thank you very much for your interesting presentation. I think I'm sure that we'll have some questions for you here. Well, does anybody have anything to say?
No, continue later.
He has finished his presentation. I mean, questions for him. I'll get back to it. If anybody has something for this. Before the question. Oh, okay, so that just hang on a minute. After the next presentation, or after the presentation, we'll take questions for all the panel. So the next presenter, who is the next presenter?
Okay, so the next presenter is Benson Igoyin. You're presenting on the right to go to hell.
Oh, oh, sorry. It's not online anymore. So I have to check something.
All right, so far.
It was there before.
Yeah, I know.
Okay. Okay, you can talk now. Immediately went to them. Yeah, he's back now. So, Mr. Benson, over.
Mr. Benson is going.
Yeah, thank you. Please, can you hear me?
Yeah. Yes, we can hear you, sir.
Oh, thank you very much. Yeah, I'm presenting on the right to go to hell. We are praising apostasy in Nigeria's religious camp. The thesis of my presentation is a continuation of last year's presentation here. That hell is here, and here is hell. I've listened to the presentations we have had that talk about apostasy. But the question my paper wants to address are: one, what is hell and who defines hell? What is apostasy and who defines apostasy? We'll look at these two questions from theological, philosophical, and perhaps, if time permits, we also look at it from philosophical perspective. The underlying question of hell from Christian and Islamic religions are very different from African traditional religion. My argument is that Christianity and Islam have linear conception of life. One is born, one is dead, then there is judgment. And at the end of the day, the person either goes to heaven or goes to hell. Whereas in many African religious communities and belief systems, there is reincarnation. One is born, one dies, and one is reborn and continues to exist. And it depends on the life, the quality of life that one had led in the previous life that one resonates to either enjoy or suffer from. But hell is here in this present world in many African traditional religions. And I take my interest from Onwa people in Edo State of Nigeria. And so generally, we talk about apostasy as the abandonment of a faith or a renunciation of one's belief in God. And the question, therefore, is who defines apostasy in this sense of abandonment or renunciation of a particular God? And underlining that question is the question of which and whose God are we talking about? Because when it comes to the issue of God within the Nigerian religious camp, we have problems practically in defining, belonging, believing, and worshiping God. Theoretically, it has been argued by many religious scholars and practitioners in the open that we worship one God. God in terms of Christianity, Allah, and Osonabra in terms in Edo religion, that all of these gods are one. But in worship, in practice, they do not agree that these gods are one. And so when we then talk about apostasy, where are we coming from? I take an instance from history that almost all Christians are apostates. In Nigeria, almost all Muslims are apostates. And the question, that statement is underlined by the fact that though any religion that preaches conversion preaches apostasy, because for there to be conversion, there must be apostasy from one religion to the other. And so if anybody converts to Christianity, or whoever claims to have been born into Christianity is an apostate from the African religious perspective. Whoever is converted as Africans, whoever is converted to Islam is an apostate from African traditional religion. And if you get back to the places of origin of Christianity and Islam, for example, the Jews, traditional Jews in the time of Jesus, who became maybe the apostles, they were apostates when they formed Christianity. They left Judaism. Ditto the Arabians, when they left Arabian traditional religion and followed the Prophet Muhammad, they were apostates. And this historical truth has been submerged in Nigeria when we discuss apostasy. Who is an apostate? And so when people react that someone has committed apostasy, has renounced either Christianity or Islam, then the question is the person who is defining the apostate is also ontologically an apostate. That fact is one of the things we're arguing for in this paper. And so, where is hell? Hell is a problematic thing. If you look at the socio-political conception of hell, almost everyone will agree with me that almost a good number of Nigerians are living here, right now, at this moment, with the policies, with the sufferings and all of the hellish policies that the governments have been, implementing. And so they suffer, and almost all the descriptions that the scriptures have in whether Islam or a Christianity about her, they are replicated here in Nigeria at this moment, except anyone wants to deceive his or herself that there is hell outside Nigeria at this moment. And so when for ATR, like I said, hell is here. Whether there are Christians, there are Muslims, I argue that at this present state, there is hell in this existential immediate space that we call Nigeria. And if there is hell outside here right now in Christianity and Islam, that hell, pushing people there, killing the apostates, raises another question about the God we are talking about here. The question is this: if man has to kill an apostate, that man is an omnipotent being. That is my argument, because it is argued theoretically that God is omnipotent, and by omnipotence, God can do all things, including his ability, whether Allah or Yahweh in Christianity or Usanebra or Lodimare in Yoruba traditional. If you believe that God is omnipotent, then God can kill by himself an apostate. But if it is human beings who subscribe to a particular religion that go ahead to kill the apostates, my argument therefore is that those human beings are greater than the gods, because to fight for God is to mean that such a God that is fought for is impotent. And so an impotent God cannot be a God that one is preached. And this is for granted on the practical experience of religious violence, persecution of so-called apostates in Nigeria. And so what are the final question I want to ask is this: if the right to go to heaven is exercised by those who are converted to a particular religion, faith becomes a human right issue. If people decide to go to heaven, that is their faith, and it is faith by choice. In the same vein, if somebody decides to live a particular faith, Christianity, African traditional religion, or Islam, that person has also exercised his right to be, not to belong to any of these religions. And to persecute that person for apostasy is a violation of his human rights. It's a violation of his right to exercise his freedom of religion. And so anyone that goes ahead to persecute an apostate, so-called in this sense, is an apostate himself and is violating the rights of another citizen of the republic. And in that case, we ask the final question: if Nigeria is a secular state, at least controversially constitutionally, because the Constitution also affirms that a state that wishes, they want to have a Sharia court to an appellate level, which means technically the Constitution also backs some religion, Islam in this case, to establish a court where an apostate could be sentenced to death, as particularly in the north, whereas in the south it's not the case. And so that problem we have in the Constitution has empowered technically apostasy and the punishment that some people like Sheikh Dr. Jalingo said last month, that those who are arguing against death penalty for apostates are compound, ignorant people, quoting him at this moment. And so the question is, in a secular state, who is an apostate? It is not well defined in Nigeria, and that is one of the problems we're having, and people who decide to leave a particular religious organization or tradition is being persecuted. And finally, who is an apostate after all? If many people today who claim that others are apostate actually converted from either traditional religious belief system or from Christianity to Islam and Islam to Christianity, vice versa, and how. So who is an apostate is a question we must ask ourselves. And where is hell? Must anyone push any other person to his or her own belief in a particular hell that the other person does not believe in? That means that there is a breach. There is, and at that point, the fundamental human rights of the so-called apostate is breached. Finally, I conclude that most Nigerian Christians today, Muslims today, are apostates who left African traditional religion to become Christians or Islam. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much. Before we go to the last presentation, I would like us to engage the last two presentations. In order not to model up questions, we can direct our questions to the presenters. You have it? Please go ahead. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much for the presentation.
Your name and
University of Lagos. Okay, so the second presentation, the one for this. So I don't know if the
I'm here.
Yeah,
that question is for you.
Okay, it may not necessarily be a question. Maybe I'm just trying to clarify. From what I got from your presentation,
I'm here to present.
Oh, you are here to present. Who was the last presenter?
Yes.
Oh, Vincent Abimbola. Are you there?
Presented.
Okay, the question is for you. Sorry about that.
Okay, so I just wanted to clarify because from the presentation, what I got was that apostasy does not necessarily mean renouncing a particular religion now, so to say. It's more like a defection from the accepted tenets of your religion. You are not necessarily renouncing, but maybe you are defecting, gradually straying. So in essence, you can even be a Christian, you can be attending church, but you may not agree with all the doctrines. You may not agree with everything that is being preached. And so it could also be a state of silent rebellion in your heart. You are not verbalizing it. You might be a Christian, you might be attending church, but you don't believe a man should have just one Bible. But you are not verbalizing it, and nobody knows. So are we saying you can be an apostate also by heart, not necessarily saying it, and yet you are still saying partaking in other forms of that agrees with you, but you are defective from the ones you don't agree with. So is that what we are saying? So is that what
you want to respond? If you want to respond,
that's the first comment, but after that, for the second one, try.
Vincent, can you respond, please? Vincent. Okay. If it's not there, can you say
Is the question for me?
Yes, yes.
That's the question for you.
Is the question for me?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I will say that one can be an apostate without necessarily leaving the church. Okay. You can be an apostate in the heart, just like she asked. You can be an apostate in the heart, because there are two forms of apostasy. And like I said during my presentation, the second one, which is the apostasy in the heart, is what leads to the first one, which is a complete disaffiliation and renunciation of the faith. So there are many people in the church who are apostate in the heart. They do not agree with some core doctrines of the church. They do not agree with some core doctrines of the church. So one can be an apostate in the heart without necessarily leaving the faith. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay.
Thank you.
Your second question to Professor Igui.
Okay, thank you for the presentation. Now, I find something a bit contestable. You said anyone living a particular religion, you said anyone living a particular religion should go through another one. Okay, you said anyone living a particular or becoming a Christian or a Muslim is an apostate of the traditional religion. Now, I think that is a bit contested. Or are we saying that you acquire religion by birth? The fact that you are an African does not mean you were once practicing traditional religion. Your forefathers might have been practicing, or by virtue of being born an African does not necessarily mean you were practicing it. So you are not necessarily renouncing to join something else. Or except we are saying you acquire religion by birth. And does that really qualify? I don't know. So I think that's a bit contested. Saying if you become a Christian or a Muslim, you are an apostate of the traditional religion. You were never practicing the religion in the first place.
All right, Prof, can you respond, sir?
Yeah, thank you for the question and the comment. Let me rephrase that, and I take it from here. Any religion that demands that you renounce where you are coming from. Christianity asks you that you confess the past you live in. And Islam asks you to declare the Kalimatu Shahada before you become a Muslim. And so once that declaration, I give my life to Jesus, I renounce what I had done before, there is renunciation there. There is renunciation. And again, I come from the background that every Jew before Jesus Christ was a Jew. Jesus Christ was born into Judaism. Prophet Muhammad was born into Arabian traditional religion. And we tend to forget this long history. So when we come to African traditional religion, there is this, I don't want to be long, and it's a colonial mentality that we are still carrying through to today, that everything about African traditional religion is evil, is bad. That is the colonial mentality. Read the Bible, read the Quran, you see all the bad things, all the killings, all the sacrifices and all of that. And those things were renounced before Muslims or Christians became either Muslims or Christians. So the ditto Nigerian traditional religion, as long as anybody renounces the forefathers and the ancestors and now gave his or her life to Jesus Christ, became a Muslim by recitation of the Kalimat Shahada, there is renunciation. There is renunciation.
Thank you. So, Vincent, you are raising up your hand.
Yes.
Please unmute yourself, sir.
Unmute yourself.
Okay, let me do this.
Okay.
He's done.
You can continue, sir.
Okay, so my question goes to the prof. I think the question we should ask is that what is the religion? What is it? Can we really say the African traditional religion is the real religion? Because none of us came to the earth with religion. We all met religion on earth. So if we say, oh, people who are Christians or people who are Muslims, if we say, oh, they are apostates, what of traditionalists? Because we all did not come to the world with religion. We all met religion in the world. The question we should ask ourselves is, what was the original? I don't know.
I think Prof started his presentation in that direction, actually.
Yeah.
Prof, you want to respond quickly before we go to the next presenter?
In fact, the answer is implied in the question. your answer is implied in your question. We didn't come to the world with religion, but we are born into it. And so once we are born into it, we tend to claim it. And many of the times, our own rights are even subjugated by our parents, who, because they belong to particular religions and we are born through them into the world, we inherit it. And they violated our rights. And that is why Christianity and Islam will still insist, even though your parents are
all of us are apostates.
Assuming Pope has a wife and children, then you also have to do what? You also have to be, you confess Jesus Christ. So once you've confessed Jesus Christ, you become a Christian, you have become an apostate from where you are coming from. So if you say the Kalimatu Shahada, you also are, into the same thing. If you are born into a Muslim family, it doesn't automatically make you a Muslim. Thank you, sir.
Thank you for the intervention. Final remark before we move to the last presentation, please.
Prof, I think there's something that you have really answered from what I started before. Somebody that is born into Christianity. Now, if it has to renounce sin, it's not religion. You're already a Christian by birth. You never practice other religion. You don't even know it. So how do you not become an
add to that, if you're born into Christianity, as you take your baby step, you will see the ask to say this thing.
Yes, it is not an attempt that you
Please, I have a question for Prof. Sir. I have a question, please.
Okay, is that Emmanuel?
Yes.
All right, wait, hold on. Let it finish.
The other presenter that presented something on heresy and apostasy. Please, I don't know, is it Emmanuel?
It's Emmanuel.
Okay. On the issue of apostasy and heresy, I think, is it not heresy that is falling away from the key doctrine? Somebody who is a heretic is falling away from the core doctrine, but still in their religion. He has not left. Just that I don't agree with this doctrine. Now, just like in Christianity now, we have different Christians. Before we came to the Nigerian and Pentecostal, before it was so doctrine. Yes, they're Christians. Anglicans, the Catholic Church, based on that of marriage. They will see how many of them like that who are still Christians. They have not left Christianity. Just that doctrines were the problem. So I think the heresy is about falling away from doctrine. Why apostasy is you are severing your with that religion. Yeah, apostasy from Christianity to Islam or other religion. I left. I renounce it. I'm not there again. I think that is one thing. Then my question is this one. Do you think that Martin Luther's sola scriptura is influencing apostasy or heresy?
Okay, I think that question is for Abimbola. Do you want to quickly respond in a breath, and then we'll go to the last presenter? Emmanuel, please, can you just hang on after the last presentation to ask your question? So, Vincent Abimbola, do you want to respond quickly, and then we move to the last presentation?
Vincent?
The question again, sir. The question again.
Okay, do you think that the Martin Luther's sola scriptura is influencing apostasy or heresy?
Sola scriptura, which
is
a Latin phrase, meaning scripture.
That
meaning scripture alone.
Yeah.
Meaning scripture alone. So the question is,
do you think it is influencing apostasy or heresy? Is it influencing it? Because as people are saying that renouncing here and there, you see, you only the scripture where the church has no say. Formally the church will define doctrine, and then the church has a say in how we understand the doctrine here and there, and the people doctrine. Now that I say that everything is about only Only the Bible, the scripture.
Yes, I believe that it has a strong, I believe that it has a strong influence on heresy and apostasy, because obviously it is not everyone in the church that that is pleased with the doctrines of the scripture. It's not everyone in the church that is pleased with the doctrines of the scripture. So there are people who believe that, oh, this is scripture and this is the reality on ground. So, and if you're asking us to adhere to the scripture strictly, it will mean that we are negating the reality on ground. Therefore, it contributes to heresy and apostasy. For example, if I even want to go on further, let's look at the issue of gender-based violence or domestic violence. Like in Africa, in Nigeria, all over the world, people will say, pastors and Christian counselors will say, don't leave your husband, don't do this. But the reality on the ground, the woman is dying. The man is beating the woman, maltreating her rather. But then the emphasis of the scripture is a woman is not expected to divorce her husband, the husband is not expected to divorce the wife. So in one way or the other, people will have to look for solution. You have to look for solution. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much. Can we have the last presenter on board? Favor Olayinka.
Yes, sir.
Go ahead, sir. Go ahead, sir.
Okay, I hope you can hear me clearly.
Yes.
All right. Good morning, everybody. I appreciate this privilege and I appreciate the panel. My name once again is Favor Olayinka Ogundiro. The title of my paper is A Christian Stance on Religious Freedom and Apostasy Among Nigerian Youth, based on Luke 15:11-31. The question this paper attempts to answer is, what should be a Christian stance or position on religious freedom and apostasy among Nigerian youth? A religious freedom allows an individual to practice any religion of their choice or to even become a non-religious person. While apostasy can simply be defined as changing or dropping one's religion. So looking at the connection between the apostasy and religious freedom, apostasy is an expression of religious freedom that leads a religious adherent to disengaging or renouncing his previously held religious belief. This paper discusses the concept of religious freedom and apostasy, and it traces the historical views of and punishment for apostasy in Abrahamic religions, which are Judaism, Islam, and Christianity. It also identifies causes of apostasy among Nigerian youth. So in this paper, recent cases of expression of religious freedom and apostasies among Nigerian youth were studied, and some of them will be cited. We have those who converted from Islam to Christianity and some from Christianity to Islam. The cases of those who moved from Islam to Christianity, we have Muhammad Sule. As a young boy, he had a comparative analysis of Islam and Christianity. And while he was reading the Bible, he found the word of Jesus very interesting to him. So he was impressed by Christians calling God their father and how Jesus was referring to his disciples as his friends. So that made him to drop Islam for Christianity. There's also a case of Oluwademire Akintoye, who, as an undergraduate student, she had an encounter with some of her schoolmates who explained the Bible to her, and she became convinced about the doctrine of the Bible, and she gave her life to Christ, turning from Islam to Christianity. Also, there's a case of Onyedamola Anyela, who became a Christian because she experienced a miraculous healing. There was a particular sickness she has been battling with even from her childhood, but because she was healed miraculously through a pastor, she became a Christian. Also, we have Salisu Bala, who had a dream, and because of that dream, the divine encounter he had, he became a Christian. Also, looking at some cases of those who dropped Christianity for Islam, there's a case of Rejoice Afebli. She lost her mother at a tender age when she was 12 years, and she began to live with a Muslim family as a result of the loss of the mother. So she really enjoyed a relationship with the Muslim she lived with because of the love they showed to her. She renounced Christianity and became a Muslim. There's also a case of Simon Aso Oji. He was a Christian and living in the north. So he was impressed by the lifestyle of the Muslims around him in that community. And because of that, he renounced Christianity to become a Muslim. There's also a case of Josephine Onwiri. She was a Christian, a Catholic member, but she got married to a Muslim and she was renamed Aisha Suleiman. And after the marriage, she was converted to Islam. And there are also other cases like that. So looking at those cases of those who converted from Islam to Christianity or Christianity to Islam, it is noticed that the influencing factor of apostasy in those cases are summarized to 6. 1, there's a personal interest in another religion. Some of them, they have personal interest in other religion. Some, while practicing their former religion, they discover a truth about the other religion they converted into. Some they changed their religion because of the good impression and the love they enjoyed from the adherents of their newfound religion. Some became apostates because of the incentive or support they received from a particular religion, while others changed their religion due to marriage, and some because of the divine encounter they had. Basically, the focus of this paper is to establish a Christian or to propose a Christian stance or to religious freedom and apostasy, looking at the parable in the book of Luke chapter 15, verses 11 to 31. But I try to look at different perspectives of interpretation that has been given to this parable. Although traditionally, the parable in the book of Luke 15, 11 to 31 is known as the parable of the prodigal son, and it has been interpreted from different perspectives. For instance, Kabat interpreted from Christological perspective, emphasizing God's reconciliation through Christ. Minculius interpreted it from the perspective of God as a forgiving God, expressing the forgiving nature of God and the acceptance of lost back to his kingdom. Eric Yinglu interpreted it from the economic perspective, looking at the kind of celebration the father threw when the younger son returned home. So you look at it from the economic perspective, the wealth that the father displayed. And also Pablo Polichuk offers a metacognitive analysis of the prodigal son, internal dialogues. He framed it as a narrative, as a journey of self-recognition and repentance. Those are the different interpretations that scholars have given to the parable in Luke 15, 11 to 31. But this paper argues that the parable can also be interpreted in the light of religious freedom and apostasy. If you look at the parable, we have the father with 2 sons. And 2 of them, they have freedom, they have liberty. So the younger one expressed his freedom by approaching the father to give him his share of his properties. And the younger son left the community. So that is termed as apostasy, like renouncing, abandoning your community. He abandoned all the values, the religion, and the lifestyle, and he went his way. So he exercised his freedom and left the community. But at another point in time, he had a rethink and returned to the father. So while the father was magnanimous in forgiving the younger son when he returned home, the brother was very upset. He was annoyed. So from this parable and the attitude of the father and the response of the older son to the younger brother's return, we can develop a Christian stance towards religious freedom and apostasy among Nigerian youth, which can also be applied to other forms of apostasies. So the paper argues that the father in the parable represents the person of Christian God, who is passionate forgiving and expectant of a Christian apostate to return back to the fold. So as in the other religions, apostasy is not encouraged by any religion. It's not limited to Christianity. Every religion wants to preserve their member. They don't want to lose their member. So if any Nigerian Christian youth becomes an apostate, their family members, their relatives, their friends, and fellow Christians should display the godly attitude of the Father as expressed in the book of Luke 15:11-31. And also, the apostate should not be rejected or stigmatized when they return to faith in Christ Jesus. So this is what is believed to be the stance of every Christian to religious freedom and apostasy of Nigerian youth, or any kind of apostasy in Nigeria. We should accommodate them when they return, and we should always believe that as long as they are alive, Christians should believe that they can return back to their belief in Christ Jesus. Thank you. That is the presentation.
All right. Thank you very much for your presentation, Favor. Well, let's just start with quick discussion. I think we have about 4 minutes before we run up the panel. If anybody has questions directly to Favor, please. Any question? Well, I think I have a comment to Vincent. When you talked about whether there's a penalty for apostates in Christianity, and you said there isn't. In actual sense, that there is a penalty for apostates in Christianity in the early Christian times and in the medieval times, especially in the Roman Catholic, when Roman Catholicism was very strong. So there are severe penalties of excommunication and even death from cases. So there are penalties for that. So if any other person wants to say something to the panelists,
Emmanuel, are you raising up your hand?
Yes, I've been doing so for some time now.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay, thank you very much. My question is to Prof on the right to hell, on that presentation. Now, I just have a question here. I'm particularly interested because apostasy as a concept is not just discussed scholarly or theoretically because we want to engage it. It's because of as I see it, the practical implications it has on society, social peace and values. Now, from my paper, I discovered that we discovered that there is resorting to traditional religion enhances a culture of violence. And now, Prof, you are saying that in Nigeria already, we are already living in hell. You said there is no hell anywhere aside what we are experiencing now. I don't know your indices for that. My question is, because of my suspicion for African traditional religions, when I'm saying this, what are the characteristics of hell from your study, according to Islam, Christianity, and African traditional religion? And why is your recommendation for us to adopt that? That's my question, sir. And also, sorry, those characteristics.
Just one question, Bro, please, can you respond, please?
Okay.
Yeah, thank you very much. Christianity, Islam have the concept of hell in afterlife as a place for punishment for sins that one must have committed here on earth. And there is a final day of judgment that each person who ever lived here on earth would be handed his or her judgment, either to go to heaven or to go to hell. So hell is a place of punishment. And in Christianity, the Old Testament, the New Testament concepts of hell are very different. We may not have time to go to that. If you read from Jeremiah and all of those, hell is in Jerusalem, is a pit near Jerusalem that burns perpetually. And that also meant, I think, until the church ages where hell began to assume an afterlife thought in Christianity. Again, that is debatable. In a place of punishment after here and now. But in many of the African traditional religions, I said particularly from Onwa in Edo State, hair is here on earth. If anybody did anything in his or her previous existence that was wrong, and the person is reborn, and you play oracle and you find out that things are not going, you play oracle, the person, you could carry out rituals that is called Arialusi. And when that person must have carried out that rituals, the sins, especially of a mother in previous life, will now be propitiated. The ancestors will cancel such sin, and the person will live a flourishing life in his or her present existence here and now, not somewhere else. And so if you look at
our time is up.
Okay.
Our time is up.
So we can always relate after now. We carry it further.
Bro, please make sure you attend. There are still more questions for you.
I will continue by 11. Our time is up now. Thank you very much. We'll continue by 11.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.